Hello friends, today I will explain to you research ethics. But before to move further, I want to give you conceptual understanding of ethics. The term ethics has derived from Greek word ethos, which refers to the guiding principles of society to direct what is right and what is wrong behavior. It also stands for what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Thus, in research, ethics refers to guidelines that affect how we perceive right and wrong decisions while doing research. Research ethics may be considered as heart of doing research. Research process begins from the evaluation of life in the earth, that is from the era of Adam and Eve. Human nature is flexible and always looking forward progressive change. In the initial phase, medical science has discovered X-ray machine for bone and organ imaging, and in contemporary days we have computed tomography, that is CT scan machine. CTs are giving more clear image with various specifications. These were possible only because of extensive research by following the principal guidelines or research ethics. Another example of technical advancement. In initial phase, we have steam engine for trains, and now we have electric trains and even bullet trains, which moves faster than the previous version. These all were possible because of continuous research of human beings. Now, I will explain to you a brief history of research ethics. Research ethics are interdisciplinary and mostly developed from the field of medicine and psychology. First history reveals Nuremberg medical trials. Friends, following the Second World War, there were attempts made to restore justice through trials of military officials under the Nazi regime in Germany. They were considered war criminals, people who committed cruel acts against the population who were subjugated under them. That time, concentration camps were also immersed, and news came that in some of the concentration camps, war criminals were put under medical experimentation, such as exposure them to freezing temperature, use of malaria pathogens, and bone regeneration attempts. These all were happening in the name of scientific advances. To control that, First, Nuremberg Code came in and provided sentence for such cruelties. This Nuremberg Code is recognized as first medical research ethics. Followed to that, several ethical guidelines came in, such as Milgram study on obedience. A psychologist did a study. Next is Tuskegee syphilis experiment, an abusive study conducted in the beginning of 1930s by the US Public Health Service. Altogether, 600 African American men were enrolled, and among them 399 men had latent syphilis and 201 were subjected to control group. Initially, it was told to conclude the study within 6 months, but study continued for 4 decades. These groups were never been informed about their diagnosis, diagnostic procedures, and treatment. None of them received penicillin, which already discovered in early 1930s. It was only in the 1970s that men received justice and received compensations. In the 1990s, President Bill Clinton delivered an official apology to the enrolled men. After several initial trials, a set of new ethical principles appeared for human beings. The first principle speaks about dignity to the person, followed by benefit to the person in terms of compensation, and justice to the person by setting some trial control limits. Ethics in research process. First comes at the time of identification of the problem. The researcher may need to select a topic depending upon his or her personal as well as professional interest in the issue being researched, and also need to see the community needs to be satisfied through research. Second, review of literature. While doing review, a researcher must include citations or references in both text and bibliography stating whose studies were reviewed. If anybody fails to include references, then this will be considered as plagiarism, and the researcher will receive punishment as per Plagiarism Act. Third, sample selection. This is very important segment of doing research. Sample provides benchmark of entire research. While collecting data from the respondent, a researcher must receive informed consent from the participants. The researcher must follow confidentiality in sensitive cases. The researcher needs to hide identity of the participants to maintain confidentiality. Conflict of interest. The researcher needs to avoid conflict of interest with the participants. In any stage, if conflict appears, then the researcher must put his or her best effort to resolve conflict. Protection from harm. To protect participants, a researcher should inform them about the available supportive services in case of any harm. Study participants have the right to know the levels of compensation either for adverse effect or any minor issues arise because of the study. Last point is data analysis and interpretation. The researcher should not fabricate or falsify study result. Researcher need to control misinterpretation of the study result. In India, to control research related issues and to safeguard both the researcher and participants, there are ethics committees established in various reputed hospitals and universities. Thank you.